Patience is indeed a virtue, and it's about to pay off big time for one car company. That's this week on Motoring 2005.
CSN's Motoring 2005 is brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Midas, for mechanics known for their work and their word. Trust the Midas touch.
You know, I know this is a stretch, but sometimes I actually feel sorry for the original big three. I mean, their market share is shrinking at an alarming rate. Toyota is poised to take over as the #1 automaker in the world. But you know, Ford, Chrysler, and GM really dug their own grave. I mean, they built vehicles that they felt consumers needed rather than what they wanted. And of course, along came the Japanese, and the rest is history. Well, now the industry has a new headache. For several years now, Korean automakers like Kia and Hyundai have been patiently redefining their image. Kia still has a little ways to go, but Hyundai, once the butt of many jokes in the industry thanks to the Pony, Hyundai is now among the 5 top automakers in the world. And recently, Consumer Reports selected the 2004 Sonata as the most reliable vehicle sold in North America. Well, this week we're in beautiful California to check out the 5th generation Sonata, a vehicle that is taking dead aim at the Japanese.
The new Sonata is everything that we want the company to represent now. It's, I think, an extraordinary package that we have put together. A beautifully designed vehicle. Styling is, I think, exactly where it should be. And it's all about the content that we have in the vehicle, all quality. And we like to think that we're now offering the best quality on the streets for the best value.
Sonata is in a huge segment, intermediate segment in Canada, and we're up against some really tough competition. So if we're going to make a real dent in the market, this one is really key, and it's going to be critical to success.
Well, they seem to be trying to move up from cheap and cheerful. In fact, they want to take the Japanese Toyota and Honda on head on. And if this car is an indication, they're damn close to doing it.
It comes in a inline four-cylinder, 162 horsepower, or a V6 at 235 horsepower, and both are offered either a 5-speed manual or automatic with Shiftronic as well.
Damn. I mean, what else can you say? Again, they've come so far, and there was nothing wrong with the other one, as all the initial quality reports and other issues have shown. It was a fine car, but this one, again, is light years better. It is so refined, and then you look at the price and you say, uh-oh, if I was in the competition, I'm going to hear footsteps, I think.
Competition's obviously the leaders in the segment right now, which are Accord and Camry and Altima. This car is larger, quieter, smoother, and we think has a better combination of content and value for the money. So you're really getting a great deal for the money that you're spending. It's tough to really pay that money these days, so we're on the consumer side.
Why not have it so that you're as good as the competition and a few $1,000s cheaper? I think that's where they stand. They're still less expensive. This is the V6 version of this is anywhere from between $3,000 and $3,500 less expensive than, say, a Camry or an Accord, and it's pretty much the same car. So they're in a good spot, I think.
Styling, to me, fairly bland, nothing outstanding there, but not an unattractive car. Nothing that makes it stand out from the pack, I don't think, but not offensive, which in a family car is probably a really good thing.
Well, the engine's very sophisticated, very smooth, very quiet, in fact, very quiet at idle. In fact, you can forget that the engine's on and try to turn the key on again. We did it once. The suspension's quite firm by Asian standards. The steering is quite firm by Asian standards as well. It's the closest car it comes to in recent memory is a Mazda 6.
I'm in my 20th year with the company, and it's like watching a young child being born and growing up. And I was there in the day of the pony, and to see us evolve from those days to where we're now producing a full line of vehicles that are top-notch quality has been an extraordinary journey.
I think they absolutely have to do this because the next wave is the Chinese. I mean, first it was the Japanese undercut the Americans, then the Koreans undercut the Japanese, and now the Chinese are going to undercut the Koreans. So the Koreans have to establish themselves as a quality maker, because if they're just cheap and cheerful, the Chinese are going to be more cheap and more cheerful.
We've set a goal for ourselves in Canada to hit 110,000 vehicles by 2010. We're going to sell 65,000 vehicles this year, and so that's a challenge for us. But with the product that we have coming out, we have 7 new products coming to market in the next 18 months, starting with the Sonata. So we're going to have a full lineup of product to go after the market in many different segments that we've never been in. So is it achievable? Yeah, definitely it is.
People are starting to understand that Hyundais are different from the ponies than they are now. So it's doing quite well.
Just watch out for Hyundai. We're on our way up, and I'm sure the competition's got their eye on us as well.
As James Taylor sang, "Damn that traffic jam." More later on Kenzie's Corner.
At one time, we toyed with the idea of rating trunk capacity by how many Fletchers you could shoehorn into it. Ford's flagship 500 holds many.
The need for such a wacky introduction is that frankly the 500 represents a possible cure for insomnia. It's a snoozer of the first order that just does not jump out of the crowd. Indeed, a neighbour who drives a Buick Allure and is as conservative gets said the 500 looks like it's waiting for a funeral procession, which is hardly high praise.
One of the 500's biggest assets is its rear seat space. Ton of legroom, plenty of headroom, and it's wide enough to accommodate 3 full-sized adults. Now you can also fold this front seat forward. Now when you fold the back seat down, that allows you to carry a longer item inside the car without having to have the trunk open. But it also has a secondary benefit. A well-placed seat mat makes for a wonderful long-distance riding position.
This large sedan, which rides on a longish 2867mm wheelbase, does have a ton going for it. Its basic body structure and optional all-wheel drive system were liberated from Volvo and so come with instant credibility. The other bit of good news is that the 500 manages to bring a ton of space without making the car feel overly ponderous in a corner. While you're not going to challenge many fast on-ramps, the highway ride is exemplary. Better yet, the feel and feedback afforded by the steering is light and direct, and the amount of body roll is well within acceptable limits. Indeed, the 500 ran the pylon test in a flatter manner than many supposed sports cars.
You know, the 500's single biggest weakness is the 3-litre V6 under the hood. It only produces 203 horsepower. Now, ironically, Ford went to the trouble of cherry-picking the chassis and the optional all-wheel drive system. Why they didn't do the same for the engine is beyond me, because quite frankly, this engine, well, for a flagship, it's the pits.
While the 3-litre Duratec engine does put 203 horsepower and 207 pound-feet of torque at the driver's disposal, it just does not feel right. True, there's enough grunt to hustle the car to 100 kilometers an hour in about 8.5 seconds when empty, but loading it up means things become decidedly more leisurely. The other drawback is that the engine does not feel as refined as it should for a flagship. It's noisy and lacks the sophistication of variable valve timing. Now both Mazda and Jaguar use versions of essentially the same V6 that do feature variable valve timing and consequently develop better power, 220 and 227 horsepower respectively. Throwing the sophistication of variable valve timing and another 20 ponies at the Ford 500, well, it would make a big difference.
When you climb behind the wheel of the 500, thankfully the interior has been given equal measures of form and function. On the form side, classy looking wood trim and a very nice set of instruments. On the function side, large controls that are easily operated with a gloved hand. You also get a power adjustable seat and power adjustable pedals. The net result, you can set the right driving position and then store it into one of the two memory positions. You also get all the usual safety stuff. Drop down side air curtains, side seat mounted airbags. It's all been very well thought through.
No complaints with the 6-speed automatic as it slips up and down its gears with effortless ease. The ratios are also spaced so as to make the best of what the engine does have to offer. Booted off the line and the low first gear gives an enthusiastic launch. At highway speed, 6th gear allows the engine to purr away almost unnoticed and ensures some semblance of fuel economy. Indeed, the 500 will return an average of 10.8 litres per 100 kilometres or so, as long as you don't drive it with a lead boot.
For a full-size family sedan, the Ford 500's got an awful lot going for it. It's roomy, it's comfortable, and considering its size, it handles remarkably well. However, it's lacking two things. It needs a personality makeover and a lot more fire in its belly.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns wet weather driving. Being safe in wet weather involves a lot of factors. First of all, make sure you've got your full headlight package on, that your wiper blades are in good condition. You've adjusted all the mirrors on your vehicle before you start it out. Make sure that you've got the heating and ventilation system turned on. You want airflow at all times. You can adjust the temperature, but keep lots of airflow going to keep those side windows from fogging up. You want to make adjustments to your driving style as well. Make sure you've always got both hands on the steering wheel, because if you hit a pond of standing water, the vehicle may pull hard to one side or another. Don't make quick corrections. Lift off the throttle and steer gently out of those situations. Also, make sure you're not driving on tires that are worn out. If your tread depth is down, your vehicle could be unsafe because of those worn out tires. Also, allow yourself extra stopping distance, adjust your speed downward, and allow yourself some extra time for those trips, so you're not pushing it and trying to make up time on the road. That's your Midas tip of the week.
You know, as Saturn's new signature vehicle, the Sky delivers a bold message about the next generation of vehicles from Saturn. The Sky's strong front end is the new face of Saturn, with a pronounced fender peak and a bold chrome bar that carries an integrated Saturn badge. Sky is designed as an authentic roadster in both form and function. For example, the manual top folds completely into the rear compartment and the hood opens in a clamshell fashion. Sky's simple yet sophisticated interior features premium materials such as piano black lacquer inserts combined with technical grains and jewel-like detailing throughout the entire instrument panel. Tight, responsive chassis, 170 horsepower engine, and a short throw 5-speed manual contribute to an authentic roadster driving experience. Our specific and unique engineering approach makes it possible to profitably develop low volume but great looking roadsters that focus on driving fun and can be offered at a price that people can afford.
BMW H2R race car is a one-off car that was built last fall and tested at our Miramax testing facility in the south of France. And this is BMW's way of the future in terms of alternative fuels. And what BMW chooses to do, because our expertise is, as Bavarian Motor Works, the internal combustion engine. So as opposed to some other technologies out there that utilize fuel cells, for instance, we have chosen to take a route where we take an internal combustion engine, something that is currently, for instance, in our 760 Li, a V12 engine, and we power it with liquid hydrogen, but it runs and operates exactly like an internal combustion engine. Our strategy is to develop that to the point that it will be available in production vehicles in the current Model 7 series within the next 3 years. The H2R race car itself was an example and proof that this technology is very viable. It set 9 world land speed records for a liquid hydrogen fueled vehicle. And what that says to us is obviously that the performance and dynamics that are inherent and typical, expected of BMW, can be produced with this alternative fuel.
The 2006 Hyundai Sonata comes loaded with standard features, including ABS brakes. Now, this is the first time the company has offered ABS brakes as standard equipment. Why? Well, the company believes if they're going to play with the big boys like Honda, Toyota, and Nissan, this is what they have to do. All right, we're now going to head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardiner. Wait a minute, I got to correct myself. This week we find Bill in somebody's driveway.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great morning to be outside working on the car, and it's National Car Care Month. May is National Car Care Month. Bill Gardiner is here. He's a mechanic. And
this year, Brad, we decided to kick off May Car Care Month in my driveway, oddly enough, from a do-it-yourself perspective. And so we set up with breakfast television here, and it's just been wonderful to show how do-it-yourselfers can still change their own oil.
Now, up under the hood, Mark's just ready to pour in the new motor oil into the engine.
Bill Gardner's just an amazing guy. As you know, we've been involved with him from your show since '84, I believe it is. And he's just so good and so natural and just plain Jane facts to the consumer on how to maintain their cars.
The ability of the motor oil to dissolve and hold in suspension all the byproducts of combustion in an engine.
The real purpose is to tell consumers about why they should be maintaining their vehicles. They're always their second largest investment next to their homes, and there's a lot of technological things that go wrong with the car these days that people don't know about. So Bill is very good at explaining that to the consumer, whether it's a do-it-yourselfer or taking it in and having it installed.
So he's wetted the whole car down in preparation to wash it. He's using a quality car wash compound right here.
Today's newer cars with all the technology is much more difficult, so it is much more of an installed market these days. But from a simple oil change, consumers, the medium do-it-yourselfer can still do that kind of thing. Otherwise, it's more about maintaining the appearance of the car, washing the car, wiper blades, vision, more safety aspects, watch your tires.
But if you leave it on there indefinitely, eventually it marks the wheel.
And yeah, it's fun. It's definitely fun, especially this National Car Care Month deal, going across the country and seeing people in different regions of the country. It's great. You know, I've learned a lot from other techs in other areas of the country that have different weather than we have, different conditions to work under. I've definitely learned a lot.
If you can't see properly, you know, it's a bad deal. So
we're just trying to make them, in most cases, a more aware consumer. You know, a lot of people aren't going to tackle the projects that I would tackle or that a tech would get into, but they can be a more educated consumer. So when they take their car in, they can interface with the people they've got to work with to get their car fixed properly a little bit better. They can speak in their terms and they can understand what's going on with their vehicle. Even if they don't want to do it themselves, they're a more educated consumer, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Because people don't check their spare tire until they need it.
Exactly,
and then
it's too late.
Number one is, I guess, buy the right car for the application, don't abuse it, and look after it, change the oil, do the maintenance on it when it should, don't run it out of fluids. I mean, so many cars coming in today, oil's off the dipstick, rad's low, transmission fluid's dirty or low. You know, you've got to make your own brakes. I mean, just give yourself a fighting chance, do the little stuff, and the big stuff usually takes care of itself pretty well if you look after the small stuff.
Okay.
there's a special place in hell reserved for guys like him who seem to think that in a case of a traffic jam, his timetable is more important than everybody else's. Everyone else is behaving themselves, sitting there on a highway, and a bit further down you can see a transport truck blocking another one of these jerks. Folks, the shoulder's there for a reason. It's there for emergencies. Now obviously the traffic's backed up, there's been a crash, or maybe there's construction further down the road. But if you're using the shoulder, maybe some other guy decides to dive out and use the shoulder, and you run into him. Then what? Nobody can get through, and maybe the ambulance that's got to go down there and save somebody's life can't get through either because you're an idiot. Now, I talked to the police about this, and sometimes we do put cruisers out there and we nail these guys. About half the phone calls we get are supportive. The other half say, why are you bothering? Just let the guy go. He's just trying to get where he wants to go. But the shoulder is there for emergencies, and that's not an emergency. As a matter of fact, my lawyer has a sign up in his office, and it reads, failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. I'm Jim Kenzie.
You know, on my way out here to California, somebody asked me what vehicle we were going to cover. I said the Hyundai Sonata. And they said, oh, that company that made the pony? Now, I know Hyundai wishes somebody would saddle up that pony and ride off into the sunset. But we already know that Hyundai's got some great product out there. But if there's one car that's going to change that old perception of this company, it's the new Sonata. Simply put, this car is outstanding. Forget the attractive price. This car is for real. And you know, one executive from Hyundai said today, we're out to kick Toyota's butt. Well, you know, I think Toyota's reaction may be one word, and that word is ouch. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
After about the 7th ride and 3 consecutive ones, you feel a little dizzy coming off. Like the first time is a little bit of a surprise because you don't know what you're expecting, and the second time you see more and more because you keep your eyes open and actually get your hands up a little bit more.
TSN's Motoring 2005 has been brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Midas, for mechanics known for their work and their word. Trust the Midas touch.